Hi, I'm JPB and welcome to this project walkthrough of Losing Control together with Mendum. We're going to be showing you how we made the track with focus on the key elements and give you some insights about our mixing and sound design approaches in this one. Alright, let's start with the leads and brasses. So, you can hear the brass sound in the main drop. This brass track was originally from a second project where we pitched it up 5 semitones. That was the early version of Losing Control. And later on we pitched it everything 5 semitones down. So what I did here is have a basic brass sample and I pitched it to play this melody here. This brass track is without any effects on it, and the first things I wanted to do is make it a bit wider, and I achieved that with stereo shaping. Then I gave the sound its characteristics with some parametric EQing, and then a bit of reverb, again to make it a bit more wider, and some basic compression. Later on, when we pitched the whole project 5 semitones down, it sounded like this, but I also put some more EQing to it, boost some of the high frequencies, cut down the low ones to give it more space for the 808s and sub frequencies. Then again, put some compression on it and a bit more reverb. And it sounded finally like this. Now, the brass element is not only played by itself, but also with the 808 and the main lead from Mendum. To give it a bit more high frequencies, I used some chords right here. And all together, it sounds like this. Alright, so the brass element is not only featured in the drop, but also throughout the whole track. And we use the brass as ambience effect as well, which you can see in the intro here. It's very drained and reverb and cut some frequencies. And then we played it as some transitional sounds as well. And open it up throughout when the verse starts and when the build-up is coming.
The next thing I want to show you is the main lead of the first drop. I'm just gonna play it. The main lead itself has two, I'm gonna call it versions. We have the plucky version of the main lead, this one, and one with more attack that is kind of like mimicking the way the brass hits work. The reason I did that is just to layer it with the brass. I can show you how that sounds together. Brass, not bass. Just to give it a bit more top end. Oops, I deleted something. As for the automations, we have a lot here. The first one I want to cover, which is something I think I got from listening to Eliminate tracks. I don't know if you heard Haunt Me, you know that Eliminate does a lot of pitch automation on leads. And I had recently, when I did that track and did the drop here, I had recently watched a lot of Eliminate videos and I was like, come on, I just got to try that. So I'm just going to disable the pitch automation and show you what it does. Of course, you can see it's the same note. And by actually not having the pitch go up all the way or just using a higher note, by ramping up the pitch like this, we get this pitch up effect, which gets, in my opinion, a bit more edge. It's just a bit more interesting. Then we have, of course, we automated the distortion, which we did in another track later. I'm going to cover that not here, in another video maybe. And then we have one of the most important automations for this lead, in my opinion. It's a very long reverb we have on here. This one down here, it's like, yeah, it's a 14-second delay reverb. It has a pretty high wet level. So if we listen to the lead when the reverb is on all the way, let's go back here. You can actually hear how long that reverb is. And we use that to give kind of a sweeping effect. You can hear it when the reverb goes up here. It's pretty much like you would do when you export a sound and reverse it. We did that as well down here. But I don't know, it's something, and again, a technique that Eliminate uses a lot. And I was like, come on, I can use that too. I love doing that. As for the effects, we have a vocoder again on here, a distortion to give it a bit more punch. This is a basic preset. I just load it in, I tweak it every time. It's a very subtle distortion, but it's definitely doing what it's supposed to do. We have a lo-fi, a short delay, some basic reverb, just a very short 0.4 seconds, and EQ. I'm just going to disable the effects for once and show you how it sounds like without effects. Kind of boring. The patch itself has some very short delay inside silence as well, to give it that kind of, it sounds like it's a bit not working properly, like it's bugged, like it's a CPU overload or something, but I like it like that. And yeah, let's listen to it once again with all the effects. Yeah, that's about it for the main lead.
Okay, Mendum showed you the main lead, now we're gonna have a look at the trap synths. Here's what they sound like. Alright, there's a lot going on. So basically, these are two leads playing along. You can hear them right here. These leads are also automated with Endless Smile, which is basically a plugin for creating tension, and some reverb automation. So every time it hits this note, it cuts off the low frequencies and drains it a bit in reverb. Just to give it a bit more variety towards the end. Playing along with these two leads, I got the 808. With a little roll on here. Just to make it a bit more interesting. And also a bass plug. You can hear it here. Just to give the bass a bit more rhythm. So the same thing happens later on, but with a bit of variety. So basically, again, the 808s are playing, this time without the bass plug, but the leads are playing a different melody. You can see it right here. Let's mute them. And you can see that there are two different leads. This one and this one. Sounds very screechy, very noisy, but if you play it in a certain rhythm, it can sound very cool like this. Alright. In the background of these trap synths, I got some vocal ambience going on. You can hear it right here. It is right... vocal ambience, there. Just to give it that mystic feel and a bit more dark atmosphere, and it's accompanied with some choir. Makes it sound very epic, very dark, and all together. That's the idea behind the trap leads.
All right, as for the basses, we have, I'm going to call it two different groups. We have the growl group, this one here, and we have the sidetrance basses for the second drop. I'm going to show them a bit later though. As for the growls, we have 10 patches, which are not all used, I think. The detuned growls, 1 to 6, all are based on the first patch here, detuned growl offbeat. I did that, I think, in a different project. I can't remember too much. The main technique this detuned growl implements is the usage of flanker filters from Serum and the reverb filter in addition to frequency modulation. So we have one wave here, the oscillator B, which gets modulated by oscillator A. Yeah, that happens on the reverb filter sometimes. Okay, I'm going to show you what the sound is like without the reverb filter. Pretty boring. We add the flanker filter to give it a bit more top edge, to give it a bit more grittiness. It has a bit of a hollow sound too, which I like. And then we add the reverb filter, which honestly just kills it. If you haven't checked out the reverb filter yet, do it. The reverb filter is just such a good filter. It's just a lot of fun. And it's quite interesting. If I just change the frequency of the cutoff here just a bit, a tiny bit, I'm just gonna see where I am. I'm at 1.8. You can see in the top corner, I was at 180.38 hertz. And if I just change that a little down to, let's say, 140, the sound is completely different. Yikes. If I go back to 1838, we have our original sound. And yeah, the different growls down here, growl 2, 3, 4, 5 to 6, are the same patch, just changed in terms of the flanker that gets used and the position of the reverb filter. Like, listen to this one. Okay, and of course the speed of the LFO. You can hear that it's coming from the same original patch. It's the same style, but it's just sounding so much different because we added, we changed the way the reverb filter sits. Yeah, that's not used actually. Then we have 3 different growls. I'm going to call them the impact growls. This is the basses that are on the hits, like this one. Or this one. I'm sorry for the weird noises. That's kind of the one downside of the reverb filter. If you stop it in the mid of your LFO, it sometimes does this. Yeah, that happens. Okay, these growls have, of course, the reverb filter as well to add a lot of the top noise. But the most important thing here is actually the multi-filter called high peak. It's a mixture of a high pass filter and a peak filter, and if you disable that, you can hear quite a difference on the bass. It just defines the whole movement, the whole yowl of the growl. These 3 growls are, I think, the same, the same technique, just different waveforms. This is a pretty hollow growl, which is basically just because we used a square wave here. I sometimes love doing growls with just some very simple wavetables, just like a saw and a square, because it's just a different experience. You use the filters differently. Yeah, I think the effect chain, I honestly use the same effect chain on everything, on every bass, because it just adds so much more punch. I'm going to show you what I mean on this growl though. The most important thing I do here is adding Camel Crusher and Vocodex together. This is the way it sounds on its own. And this is the way it sounds with Camel Crusher, Vocodex, and another Camel Crusher. Then we add an OTT to bring out the frequencies again, and of course an EQ in the end. I honestly wouldn't do it like that anymore. This is, of course, an older project. You live, you learn. But we didn't want to use a separate sub for this bass, or for the basses, because I'm gonna honestly say it's quite hard to replicate this. So we just thought about, okay, let's just put in a low end on each of these, so we don't have to worry about that. Yeah, that's about it for the growls. Now let's get to the sidetrans basses. They are all the way back here. What I like doing on sidechain spaces, as you know, we have a sidechain here. If I enable that, it sounds different. There we go. You usually don't hear the top notes up here in the track, in the final track, because of the kick sits there, but I like adding that because it's like gives it a bit more high end. The sidechain space is again a layer. It's consisting of this one, the main sidechain space, and a top end base. That just adds a bit more noise. I think both of them are in silent. Let me check. Yes. Where's the second one? Step is in the way. Yes. And then we have, okay, sure, a extra sub for the sidechains part. That's kind of like a kick. And that's pretty much all for the basses. We have some bass hits in the sidechains drop. I'm going to show you them too. Just simple basses on the hits. Okay, I have the sidechain disabled. That might sound a bit weird. Keep in mind that the version of the track I have here is a bit older than the one JPB has, because we work in iterations. We don't have the same PC, so I have to send him the stems, and he works with the stems and all that. Yeah, that's about it for all the basses.
Are we talking about losing control?
Okay, now I'm gonna show you how I mixed Marvin Devine's vocals, how I made my own vocals towards deep sidetrance drop, and some of the other vocal elements that I quite find interesting to show. Okay, let's go. That's Marvin Devine's verse right here.
Marvin Marv, yeah. Watch the way I start up. Yeah. I've been going hard, but I can go way harder.
Okay, just to show you how the vocals were without any effects before.
Marvin Marv, Marvin Marv, watch the way I start up.
What I did first was something called subtractive EQing. So let me turn off all effects and go through it step by step. So, first thing, I did something called subtractive EQing. It's just to cut out some of the unnecessary frequencies and to clean up the sound a bit more. Then again, some sound forming with parametric EQ. Again, cutting out one frequency there. Then I use Sound Goodizer in combination with the Glue, which are both just compression plugins.
Watch the way I start up.
Makes it already a bit louder, a bit more compressed, more better in the mix. Okay, next up, I cut down some of the low frequencies to give up a bit more space for the bass frequencies and just to clean up the overall mixing.
Marv, watch the way I start up.
Then I use some flanging. This plugin is called Valhalla Space Modulator. You can't hear it quite yet. I'll turn it up just to give you an example of what it does.
Marv, watch the way I start up.
Sounds like a spaceship, like very flagy sound. I just used quite a little bit of it, so I put it down to 12%.
Marv.
And it kind of gives it a bit of flanging sound, makes the vocal a bit more interesting. So then again, I used Ozone 8, which is actually a mastering plugin. And in there, I'm using dynamics compression.
Marv.
And imager just to boost up some of the mids to high frequencies to make them a bit more stereo and cut down a bit of the low frequencies to make them more mono. You can see in the spectrum there where the vocal is going stereo-wise.
Marv, watch the way I start up.
And then some basic vintage limiting just to make it a bit louder in the end.
Marv, watch the way I start up.
Then I used Maximus for de-essing to have the harsh S sounds that are sometimes appearing and duck them a bit down so they don't nag into your ear.
Marv, watch the way I start up.
Then again, some subtractive EQing, and in the end, one frequency that I don't want it to have in the mix.
Marv, watch the way I start up.
Then I used some reverb.
Marv, watch the way I start up. I've been going hard.
Makes it wider. Then I used some delay which you can hear before he starts his verse.
I'm gonna show you how we lose control, baby.
Which is automated with this automation clip. So every time he says something, the delay ducks down, and every time he finishes saying something, I want it to delay spread out until the next word is coming, which you can see here.
Oh yeah. Are we talking about losing control?
Just to fill up the space in between those words, make it a bit more interesting, make it a bit more roomy. Alright, so another effect that I used here is to double down some of his verses with a vocal synth.
Hard, but I can go way harder. Every beat I'm on, yeah, you know that I slaughter hand up.
Now, you can see it right here. These are two automations. One is for the vocal synth itself. I can show it right here. Takes a bit quite a time to load it up. There you go. This is the vocal synth.
Hard, but
Now, what it does, it's basically putting a vocoder, a Biovox, and a computer vox sound effect to it, and gives it a bit more robotic sound. And to have it in key, I used Autotune Pro just to play it a certain note perfectly.
hard, but I can go way harder.
And I use that every time he says some of the keywords, and I wanted to bring them a bit more out of the mix. So you can hear it here.
Loving me and contemplate. Wondering to be losing control. Oh!
Yeah, that's it for the vocal mix for Marvin Devine. And now I'm gonna show you something towards the end, an Psytrance drop. I actually did record my own vocals, and yeah, let's have a look at them. Gonna load them up here. You can hear it when the Psytrance drop is kicking in. It's my voice saying, losing control, I'm about to losing control, I'm about to losing control, I'm about to losing control. Now, what you can hear here is without the effects, it sounds very boring. Losing control, I'm about to losing control, I'm about to What I did first, use some Autotune Pro, because I can't sing. Then I used some Paramedic EQ just to round up the sound. Let me turn off all effects so you can hear it step by step. Losing control, I'm about to losing control. Then some basic compression to bring out the vocal a bit more. Losing control, I'm about to losing control, I'm about to make it a bit more roomy with reverb. Losing control, I'm about to losing control, I'm about. Then again I use the space modulator just to bring that flangy sound back. Losing control, I'm about to losing control, I'm about to lose. And these are some effects for automations. Again, an endless smile for some tension creation, and kickstart just for sidechaining when the kick hits in the 4x4 tempo. Losing control, I'm about to losing control. Now, next up, I wanted to bring some harmonization in it. So I sang the losing control part again, but in the mid-term. You can hear it here. Losing control, I'm about to 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 losing control. Just to fill it up towards the end. So the main idea behind this vocal is it starts when the Psytrance drop is kicking in. Then in the mid part of the Psytrance drop there's another vocal kicking in, and towards the end there's a high vocal from me coming in. You can hear it right here. Control, I'm about to losing control, I'm about to losing control, I'm about. And what's also interesting about this vocal, which you can find here, it's also panning from left to right to emphasize of someone actually losing the control and losing their mind. It's like voices in your head and it's spinning from left to right. You can see it with this automation here, and you can see it moving down here. Control, I'm about to losing 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 control, I'm about to lose. And all together you can hear it here in the mix. Alright, so that was the part with my vocals, and then again I used some other vocals effects. In the mid of the Psytrance drop there is an Indian vocal singing. Let me load it up here. It's this one. It's called Psy Vocal. So it's a very typical vocal in a psytrance genre. There are a lot of Indian tribal sounds, and here's how it sounds. So let me show you how I made that sound. So the basic sound without any effects on it, it sounds like this. So the first thing I did is something called glitch tube. Here's how it sounds. Let me turn off all effects again and show it to you step by step. So what I did first is put some delay on it just to make it a bit wider, then put some glitch effects, re-triggering in that part, and make a tape stop effect just to keep it a bit moving throughout the whole track. Now, to give it a bit more rhythm and to emphasize more the psytrance rhythm, I put it through growth speed and basically have a trance gate on it. Here's how it sounds. After that, I put some EQing again, cutting out much of the low frequencies just to give it a bit more room for the other elements, because in the psytrance drops there's a lot going on and you really have to look out which element is given certain frequencies. Then I'm using a patcher, just a vocal rider to keep it in the mix, a bit more of reverb, and the sidechain. And all together you can hear it here. Besides the psy vocals, I also got the choir here again, and some of the vocal ambience vocals kicking in during the psytrance as well. The choir is playing towards the end again. And now we come to the interesting part, the main vocal. It's actually, let me load up the second project. In the earlier version, everything was pitched up 5 semitones, right? So here's what the first vocal sounded like.
I like losing control.
Sounds very different. So without any effects, it's actually a female vocal. I downloaded it from Splice, and it sounds like this.
I like losing control. I get high when I'm feeling my flow.
So what I did there, I wanted to pitch it down, and I used vocal synth doing that with basically just a format shift. So here's what the vocal sounds without it.
I like losing control.
And then you can pitch it down.
I like losing control.
And put on the effects. So
I like losing control. Get high when I'm feeling my flow.
that's how I made the effect on the main losing control vocal. Then there's a bit EQing going on. I use guitar rig just for compression. And when we pitched it down again, it sounded like this.
I like losing control. I get high when I'm feeling my flow.
So very, very different from the original sample. And what we did there in the psytrance drop is we actually took one of the vocal sample and we chopped it to play along with the kick. You can hear it right here. In the full mix you can hear it in the background. And that's it for the whole vocals.
Okay, next up I'm going to show you the plugs and apps we used in losing control. There's one plug layer called intro plugs, one layer called orchestral plugs, and we have 2 apps right here. On the intro plugs we have 2 plugs playing the main intro melody. And we have 2 plugs playing a simple chord melody, simple chord progression. Then we have the orchestral plugs, which is a layer of 4 different plugs: an E piano, a Celesta, violins, and a harp, and they play the intro melody as well. Yes. They all play in the second drop as well, later on in the sidechains drop, but they play a different melody. I'm just going to show them both. Yeah. The orchestral plugs all have the exact same effects, just 2 short delays, very short ones, and a bit of reverb. Then we have the 2 ARPs. We have our ARP wet. Oh, that is without the effects actually. I can show that quite good. This is with the most important effects on. This is the vocoder we added and a camel crusher. I'm going to show it with all the effects. The ARP dry is honestly pretty much the same, since it is the same patch, but it's a bit, I'm going to say, lighter. It has a quicker decay, shorter attack, and all that. Here we play a bit with the reverb to give it a sweeping effect. Yeah, that's about it for ARPs and plugs.
Alright, thank you for watching. That's it for this video. If you liked it, please leave a thumbs up. Follow us on Instagram, it's JPB Official and Mendum Official, and subscribe to this channel to see more of this content.